Hey everybody, I'm Jasmine Pierce. I'm the Senior Director here at BXO. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Buzz School, where we bring you inspiring stories from tastemakers in our network so you can gain insight on how to build your own buzz. On this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Aishwarya Iyer, who is the founder and CEO of Brightland. After discovering that the majority of the olive oil that Americans consume is either rancid or tainted, she decided to take matters into her own hands and not only change the olive oil game, but evolve the company into a full pantry staple brand. Keep listening to learn more, and I hope you enjoy.
Ash, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I recently got my hands on the newly launched Rosette, which is a rich garlic olive oil. I hope everyone can see this.
We're so excited about it. It's one of my favorites, actually, right now.
I love your story. You made a full career pivot in an effort to solve a very real problem that the majority of the general public wasn't even aware of. And in a relatively short amount of time, Brightland has basically changed the world of olive oils and pantry essentials. So for those of us who maybe don't have business experience or aren't startup savvy, can you walk us through how you took your idea and made it into a tangible reality?
Yeah, it was a multi-part process. I think the first part was searching from within and even coming up with that confidence and that like determination to say, yes, I'm going to move forward with this. So I think it's like first getting comfortable knowing that you're going to be very uncomfortable for the foreseeable future. I think the next part was really analyzing and assessing like our financial situation. People do all kinds of things based on their privilege level, basically. Like some people have trust funds and can kind of just kickstart a really luxurious, beautiful brand without, you know, without really having to blink an eye. And other people have to kind of claw their way into like being able to, have some sort of some prototype. And so I had to kind of assess where I was financially and think about how much I was willing to kind of contribute towards this. Because I decided to first, bootstrap and not raise outside funding, which that is
Wow.
also another kind of piece of this. So really understanding your finances, I think, is like the next piece. And then in tandem, it was a lot of conversations with entrepreneurs in adjacent spaces, asking them super specific questions about like, how did you find a particular bottle? How should I be thinking about order quantities? How should I be thinking about marketing? Just asking a million questions and kind of starting to streamline, my thought process. And then at the same time, also thinking about, okay, what does our supply chain look like, and what does our brand kind of look and feel, and that brand soul really look like? So it's all of those things together and laying that foundation to then get ready to launch.
Were there any tactics or uh, any things you did to sort of help you build that confidence and sort of quiet that self-doubt?
Yes, I read a book called Silencing Your Inner Critic by Hal Stone, and that was a big game changer for me. I worked with a life coach for about 6 months prior and had to kind of like reframe a lot of stories that I had been telling about myself to myself. And then I journaled a lot. I vision boarded a lot. I did all of the things that I used to kind of scoff at and say like,
Right.
is this really like, is this going to help? It was incredibly helpful for me.
How much time would you say it took from idea to launch, or even from like seed to bottle, for you to take this idea and make it into a reality and something that was building momentum?
Um, from idea to launch, it was, I would say 2.5, 3 years, but from like, okay, I'm going to actually do this to launch, it was about 15 months, 16 months.
You've managed to build a brand that is basically everywhere right now. From celebrities are cooking with it on Instagram. You've been covered in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Vogue, just to name a few. If you had to say, what are some of the top things that helped you really lay the foundation for your success? And do you think that those things can be recreated in today's market?
Hmm. I mean, I think that it's really leaning into your personal story. Like I
Mm,
always started with, this is why I'm starting it rather than this is what it is. So starting with why and having that permeate, I think, through everything we did, maybe that kind of spoke to people. I think incorporating design as such like an important part of our brand, I think definitely like
mhm.
appealed to people. Um, and ultimately the product has to speak for itself. So, our design in this beautiful bottle, I always say that this is our like Trojan horse because
Yeah.
this is what gets people excited. But ultimately, when they taste the products, they're blown away by the quality and the taste and kind of how it transforms your food. And that is the most important, like everlasting piece of it. Um,
Mhm.
and in terms of recreation, I mean, we're constantly evolving and I see the landscape constantly evolving. Like I don't know if the playbook or the thought process that I had in 2018, if that could apply in 2021. I'm not sure anymore.
You were new to the industry, like you weren't working in food at the time. So to find partners, to find farmers to work with to get the quality ingredients that you needed, was that difficult at first? And how did you approach that process?
Yeah, most people didn't take my calls. And when I met with people, they didn't take me seriously. I think as a young woman of color, like I think people were just sort of like not enthusiastic or sort of dubious about the whole thing. And one thing that we did, I since I didn't come from a background in food, I truly, when I look back on it, like I had so much naivete, like a healthy amount, but also maybe like a little too much in terms of like thinking about the food industry or, you know, in that aspect. And so one thing I knew what I didn't know. And so I brought on, like Becca PR came on board as our launch partner. And
Mhm.
that was such a game changer. I don't think I even realized at that time, to be honest with you, what a game changer it was. I was just sort of like, great, like we're just kind of, going through the motions of this. But when I look back at it, it was incredibly instrumental to our success and who we are now. And they have, like
Wow.
they slash you have been like Becca has been an amazing, amazing, yeah, invaluable to us.
Wow. Thank you. I mean, that means so much to us. I mean, we find, having partners like you, we're lucky to be able to work with entrepreneurs like you. So thank you. So direct to consumer brands have exploded in the past couple of years, especially during the pandemic. How do you think that new brands can stand out in a landscape that some might say is oversaturated?
Yeah, I think it's having a distinct point of view. It is not looking at what everyone else is doing. Like, don't spend time
Hmm.
looking at what other brands are doing. It's just gonna create more noise in your head. And then without even realizing it, some of your stuff might start looking and sounding and feeling like other brands. And that's why there is this like oversaturation of like kind of brands and blands, they call it blanding
Right.
rather than branding. And I also think like this concept of D2C is great. It's a great foundation, but like people do want to interact with the real world. And, with hopefully we're turning a bit of a corner on the pandemic. Hopefully people will also want to be in the real world again and really thinking through ways to be creative and be in front of your customer, I think
Hmm.
is so pivotal and so important.
I know Brightland has made its mark as a pantry staple brand, but really it's a lot more than that. Your company is committed to activism as well, and that's seen through recent collaborations with nonprofits like Slow Factory Foundation, which focuses on social and environmental justice. Do you think that new brands have a responsibility to not only sell products for profit, but to also use their platform to bring awareness to important causes?
Um, I think that if you're a human, you're thinking about all of these things and
Hmm.
possibly affected by all of these things, and what you put out into the world, um, you know, you were able to put that out into the world because of politics and kind of the way that the world works. And I think
Hmm.
that it is, it should be table stakes, that it's sort of incorporated into your identity and value system. Because as a human, you have a set of values. And so as a company organization, your organization probably also has a set of values. Um, and so I think it's up to you to sort of figure out what those values are, and
Hmm.
not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk in whatever ways that you see fit.
What top piece of advice would you give to an entrepreneur that has a game-changing idea that they're hoping to turn into a buzzworthy brand?
Mine is always look outside of your industry. For if you
Mm,
are going to seek out inspiration, which most of us, I think, want to and want to feel inspired, whether it's looking at Pinterest or looking at Instagram, try to spend as much time as you can looking outside of your specific industry and pulling from other sources of inspiration. Um, and then I think my other piece would be to not focus too much on what everyone else is doing as much as possible, because it can be pretty daunting.
a COVID ritual you're going to stick with.
Listening to a subliminal each morning, to either it's like a something that you listen to on YouTube that has like affirmations, kind of hidden messages behind it.
A restaurant or bar you'll run to as soon as the world opens up fully, or one that you miss the most.
In New York, there's this wonderful magical spot in Brooklyn Heights called River Deli, and
Mm,
I can't wait to go back there. And then there's also a spot kind of in the same area called Colony. And then in LA, I've been thinking a lot about the Nomad Bar, honestly. Like I really want to sit
yeah.
at the bar, yeah, and
Oh,
have like
I
a
miss sitting at a
wonderful,
bar.
yeah.
Your favorite recipe that you've made recently with a Brightland product?
I made Bryant Terry's green rice a few days ago,
Mm,
and it was wonderful. And I actually used both like a little bit of a splash of our parasol, which is our champagne citrus champagne vinegar. And I used copious amounts of ardor or chili oil in there too. And then like roasted
yum.
some chili peanuts and with ardor, and it was just really, really delicious. But yeah, it's Bryant Terry's green rice.
The last thing that made you belly laugh.
Oh, well, it's actually what we posted on Instagram, and it's on Brightland's Instagram today. It's a clip from that 90s show Maury, where there's a woman who's afraid of olives. And so she's
Oh
running
my,
away from olives. And it's like not totally on brand for us, but we do have this like childlike, one of our brand kind of pillars is like being kind of childlike and kind of funny and fun.
yeah.
And so we've posted that, and I've watched it probably 30 times, and I laugh like full belly laugh each time.
Who do you want to throw some buzz to today? Who is doing something cool that you think more people should know about?
My friend Chelsea Nicholson is about to launch an amazing company for your for TMJ. So for, you know, basically
Mm,
clamping down when you're stressed. It's called Good
mhm.
Bite, and it's launching in early April. So if this is
Wow.
live, you know, by then or before then keep an eye out. And if it's live afterwards, definitely check out Good Bite, because she's doing something really special.
Well, Ash, thank you so much for all of this thoughtful insight. Your entrepreneurial path is incredibly admirable, and I, for one, have learned a lot today. So thank you. And thank you all for tuning into Buzz School. Till next time.